A fist stopped an inch from a man's throat. Not because it missed, because it chose to. The strike came so fast no one in the room saw the arm move. They only saw a grown man frozen in place, sweat on his temple, staring at knuckles resting against his windpipe. Nobody spoke. The room was old. Bare floors. No cameras. Just two men and a circle of students holding their breath. The man who threw that punch was not young. He was over 70. Small frame, thin arms. But the fist at that throat belonged to Ip Chun, eldest son of Ip Man and one of the last true Wing Chun grandmasters alive. And the man on the receiving end was Jackie Chan. How the biggest movie star in martial arts ended up facing a quiet old master is a story nobody expected. Stay with me on this one. To understand what happened in that room, you have to understand the man who threw that punch. And the man who received it. Ip Chun woke up every morning at 5. Not because he had to, because he'd done it for 60 years and his body didn't know any other way. He lived in a small apartment in Kowloon. Nothing fancy. A couple of rooms above a noodle shop. The floors creaked. The walls were thin. And every morning before the sun came up, he stood in his living room and practiced Wing Chun forms the same way his father taught him when he was a boy. His father was Ip Man. If you know anything about martial arts, you know that name. Ip Man is the grandmaster who trained Bruce Lee. The man who brought Wing Chun out of southern China and into the world. There are movies about him, statues, museums. But Ip Chun didn't live in any of that. He lived above a noodle shop, and he taught a class of maybe 15 students in a rented hall 3 blocks from his apartment. That's it. No brand deals. No YouTube channel. No seminars in Las Vegas. Just a 70-year-old man who could take apart anyone who walked through his door, and who chose instead to spend his days correcting the elbow angles of teenagers. Now, Jackie Chan. Believe me, I don't need to tell you who Jackie Chan is. The man is a legend. Over 200 films. Stunts that broke bones, his bones. He built an empire on being the guy who did everything himself. No wires. No doubles. Real hits, real falls, real danger. But here's what most people don't know. By the time this story takes place, Jackie was tired. Not physically. Something deeper. He'd spent decades turning martial arts into entertainment. Every punch was choreographed. Every kick had a camera angle. And somewhere along the way, the thing he loved, the actual art, had gotten buried under all the spectacle. He started asking questions. Quietly. To people in his circle. Who's still real? Who's still practicing the old way? Not for movies. Not for money. Just because the art matters. Every name that came back was the same. Ip Chun. So Jackie's team made a call. They said it was about a film. A new project that needed an authentic Wing Chun advisor. Could Ip Chun consult? Maybe visit the set. Offer some technical guidance. Ip Chun said no. He'd been asked before. Plenty of times. The Ip Man movies alone had turned his family name into a franchise, and he wanted no part of it. He didn't like what the cameras did to the art. Made it pretty. Made it dramatic. Took out the pain and the patience and left only the flash. But Jackie didn't give up. He made the next call himself. No assistants. No producers. Just Jackie Chan on the phone, speaking Cantonese, asking for 15 minutes. And here's what changed everything. Jackie didn't ask for a consultation. He asked for a lesson. A real one. In Ip Chun's own hall. Under Ip Chun's rules. No cameras. No crew. Just 2 men and whatever the art decided. There was a long silence on the line. Then Ip Chun said one word. Come. His students didn't understand. Some of them had trained under Ip Chun for over a decade and had never seen an outsider invited into a private session. One of them, a man named David, who'd been with the school the longest, asked Ip Chun directly why he agreed. Ip Chun didn't answer right away. He walked to the wooden dummy in the corner of the hall. It was old. Dark from years of palm oil and impact. He placed both hands on it and said, because he asked correctly. That was it. No further explanation. 3 days later, Jackie Chan walked through the door of that training hall. No entourage. No bodyguard. Just a gym bag and a pair of flat shoes. He bowed at the threshold the way a student would. And that is when Ip Chun's students realized this wasn't going to be a friendly visit. Ip Chun was already standing in the center of the room. Hands down, feet set, the wooden dummy behind him like a second spine. He looked at Jackie the way you look at someone you're about to test. Not with anger, not with ego, with focus. Pure, still, unblinking focus. Jackie set his bag down, took off his jacket, rolled his shoulders once, and the room went quiet. Jackie moved first. That surprised everyone. He came forward with a low kick, fast, clean, aimed at Ip Chun's lead knee. It was a test, not meant to hurt, meant to measure. How fast does the old man react? How far does he move? Ip Chun didn't move far. He shifted his front foot about 2 inches to the left. That's all. The kick sailed past his knee and hit nothing. Jackie's momentum carried him slightly forward, and in that half-second gap, Ip Chun's hand was already on his wrist. Not grabbing, resting, like he'd placed it there while waiting for a bus. Jackie pulled back, reset, tried again. This time a straight punch, his bread and butter, the kind of shot he'd thrown 10,000 times on film. Fast, committed, aimed right at the chest. Ip Chun redirected it with the back of his forearm. Barely a motion. Jackie's fist slid past Ip Chun's shoulder like water off a stone, and the old man stepped in. One palm pressed lightly against Jackie's sternum. Not a strike. A statement. I'm here. You're open. Now here's the thing. Jackie Chan is not a movie fighter pretending to know martial arts. The man trained at the China Drama Academy from the age of 6. He knows kung fu the way a carpenter knows wood. His reflexes are world-class. His body has been conditioned by decades of real contact. And none of it mattered. Every combination Jackie threw, Ip Chun dismantled with the smallest possible movement. A roll of the wrist, a turn of the hip, a half-step that somehow put him exactly where Jackie's power couldn't reach. It was like watching someone try to grab smoke. Jackie started moving faster. You could see the shift. The first few exchanges were respectful, measured, but something was building in him now. Not anger exactly, frustration. The kind that comes when your body tells you that you're doing everything right and the result keeps coming back wrong. He threw a hook. Ip Chun caught his elbow mid-arc, folded the arm down, and tapped him twice on the ribs. Light taps. The kind that say, those could have been real. Jackie reset again. This time he didn't rush in. He circled, changed angles, tried to find a blind spot. Ip Chun didn't turn to follow him. He adjusted with micro-shifts, always facing center, always balanced, hands low and relaxed like he was standing in line at a market. Then Jackie committed everything. A fast jab to draw the guard, a spinning back kick with real power behind it. The kind of move that ends fights in movies and sometimes ends them in real life too. Ip Chun dropped under the kick by bending his knees. Not a duck, not a roll, just a calm lowering of his center, like sitting into a chair that wasn't there. The kick passed over his head, and before Jackie could recover his stance, Ip Chun was inside his guard, both hands controlling Jackie's lead arm. One foot behind Jackie's ankle. Jackie went down. Not hard. Ip Chun controlled the fall the way you'd lower a child into a chair. But he went down. Jackie Chan. On the floor. Looking up at a man 30 years older and 50 pounds lighter. The students along the wall didn't make a sound. David, the senior student, had his arms crossed and his jaw tight. He'd seen Ip Chun do this to young fighters before, but never to someone like Jackie Chan. Jackie lay there for a second. Then something happened that nobody expected. He laughed. Not the big movie laugh. A quiet one. Almost like relief. He put his hands flat on the floor and shook his head. Again, he said. They went 3 more rounds. Each time Jackie adjusted, got smarter, tightened his entries. But each time Ip Chun found the gap. The Wing Chun centerline theory, control the middle and everything else falls apart, wasn't just theory in Ip Chun's hands. It was law. Jackie couldn't get around it, couldn't punch through it, couldn't fake it out. By the 5th round, Jackie stopped altogether. He put his palms together and bowed. Deep, The kind of bow you give a teacher, not an opponent. Ip Chun bowed back. Shorter, but real. And that was it. The session ended the way a storm ends. One moment the air is electric, and the next, nothing. Just stillness. Ip Chun walked to the small table near the window and poured 2 cups of tea from a thermos. No ceremony. No special cups. Just the same dented metal thermos he brought every day. He set 1 cup on the edge of the table and nodded toward it. Jackie came over and took it. They sat across from each other on folding chairs. Jackie was breathing hard. Ip Chun was not. The students began to move again, murmuring quietly, filing toward the back of the hall to give the 2 men space. David brought out a cloth and wiped down the wooden dummy. Routine. Same thing he did after every session. The hall settled. Afternoon light came through the high windows. The tea was cheap oolong. Nothing special. But Jackie held the cup with both hands and didn't drink for a long time. He just sat there, looking at the floor, and for once in his life the man who always had something to say was completely quiet. Ip Chun sipped his tea and looked out the window. A bird sat on the ledge outside. Traffic hummed below. Somewhere down the street a vendor was calling out prices on mangosteens. Felt finished. Whatever needed to happen had happened. The test was done, the respect was given. And now 2 men were drinking tea in a rented hall above a busy street in Kowloon. The students assumed that was the end. Jackie would leave. Life would go back to normal. The hall would be theirs again. For about 4 minutes, everything was perfectly calm. Then David opened the back door. He'd gone to take out the trash. A normal thing. He pushed the metal door open, stepped into the alley, and stopped. There were 2 men standing next to a van. One had a camera on his shoulder. The other was holding a directional microphone with a foam windscreen pointed straight at the building. David didn't say anything to them. He turned around, walked back inside, and went straight to Ip Chun. He whispered something in Cantonese. 3 words. Ip Chun's face didn't change, but his cup stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down slowly. Then he looked at Jackie. Did you know? Jackie blinked. Know what? There are cameras outside. Pointed at my hall. Jackie stood up. Fast. The kind of fast that doesn't come from guilt. Comes from recognition. He crossed the room, pushed through the back door, and saw the van. Saw the camera. Saw the microphone. And saw the man leaning against the van's front bumper, talking on a phone. A man Jackie recognized immediately. Raymond Kwok, one of the producers attached to Jackie's upcoming film. The same film whose consultation request had started this whole thing. Jackie walked up to him. Raymond smiled, put the phone down, started talking before Jackie could get a word out. We got beautiful stuff, the whole session. Audio's clean. We can cut a 3-minute promo that'll break the internet. The old man is incredible on camera. Jackie didn't smile back. Who told you we were here? Raymond shrugged. Your assistant sent the schedule. Standard protocol. You go somewhere, we document it. You know how this works. Jackie grabbed the camera operator by the strap on his shoulder. Not violent, but firm. Turn it off. The operator looked at Raymond. Raymond waved his hand like it didn't matter. It's already backed up. Relax. This is gold, Jackie. People want to see this. Now here's where everything changed. Because up until this moment, the story was about 2 men testing each other. Martial arts. Skill against skill. Respect between generations. Something private and honest. But Raymond Kwok didn't care about any of that. To him, Ip Chun was content. The sparring session was footage. The quiet hall was a set. And Jackie's sincerity, the real reason he'd come, was just a marketing angle. Jackie went back inside. Ip Chun was standing now. His students had gathered behind him. Not in a fighting stance, but close. You could feel it. The room had changed. The calm from 5 minutes ago was gone like it had never existed. The footage, Ip Chun said. What is on it? Jackie told him everything. The van, the camera, the microphone, the producer, the backup. He didn't soften it, didn't make excuses, just laid it out. Ip Chun nodded slowly. Then he said something that hit harder than any strike he'd thrown that afternoon. You came here as a student, but your world followed you in as a thief. Jackie didn't argue. He couldn't, because it was true. It didn't matter that he hadn't known. His world, his machine, his industry, it had done what it always does. It found something real and tried to turn it into a product. Ip Chun turned to David. Close the doors. Cancel classes for the week. David moved without a word. Then Ip Chun looked at Jackie one more time. If that footage reaches the public, I will never teach another outsider. Not for film. Not for any reason. This hall is not a stage. He walked to the back of the room, collected his thermos, and left through a side door. His students followed. Jackie was alone in the hall. Now, this is where Jackie Chun did something that most people in his position would never do. He didn't call his lawyer. Didn't call his publicist. Didn't try to manage the situation the way a movie star manages a scandal. He walked back outside into that alley and stood in front of Raymond Kwok. Delete it. All of it. The backup too. Raymond laughed. You're joking. Do you know what this is worth? An actual fight between Jackie Chun and a real grandmaster? This isn't some press event. This is raw. This is real. Every outlet in Asia will run this. That's why you're going to delete it. Jackie, come on. Be smart. Jackie took the camera off the operator's shoulder. The man let him. You don't fight Jackie Chun over a camera. Jackie opened the side panel, pulled the memory card, and snapped it between his fingers. Raymond stopped smiling. The backup, Jackie said. It's in the cloud. I'm not giving you my phone. Jackie stepped closer. He didn't raise his voice. But the man who'd spent 40 years learning how to project physical authority on screen turned all of it on Raymond Kwok in a parking lot behind a noodle shop. You will delete it. You will call whoever has access and tell them to delete it. And if one frame of that footage shows up anywhere, a trailer, a leak, a reel, anything, I will pull out of the film. Publicly. And I will say why. Raymond stared at him for a long time. Then he pulled out his phone, made 3 calls, and deleted the files in front of Jackie's face. If you're still with me, hit that subscribe button. Because what happened next changed both men's lives. Jackie went home that night and sat in his apartment for a long time. The footage was gone. But the damage wasn't. He had walked into Ip Chun's world asking for something real, and his own world had contaminated it within hours. The question wasn't whether the footage was destroyed. The question was whether the trust was. He picked up his phone and called the training hall. David answered. Jackie asked one question. Will he see me again? David paused. Then, he said, come tomorrow. 6 in the morning. Alone. If you bring anyone, don't come at all. Jackie said he'd be there. He didn't sleep that night. He showed up at 5:45, 15 minutes early. The street was still dark. The noodle shop below hadn't opened yet. Jackie stood at the door of the training hall with nothing in his hands. No bag, no phone, just himself. The door was already unlocked. Inside, Ip Chun was standing at the wooden dummy, running through a form. Slow, deliberate. Each contact with the wooden arms made a low, flat sound that filled the empty room like a heartbeat. He didn't turn around when Jackie entered. Didn't acknowledge him. Jackie stood by the door and waited. 3 minutes passed. Maybe 4. Then Ip Chun stopped. Placed both hands flat on the dummy. Stood still. You want to understand Wing Chun? He said without turning around. Yes. Then don't fight today. Teach. Jackie didn't understand. Teach who? Ip Chun turned around. My students arrive at 7. You will lead the first hour. Now, think about what that means. Jackie Chun, a man who had performed martial arts in front of millions, who had choreographed some of the most famous fight scenes in cinema history, was being told to stand in front of 15 students in a rented hall and teach Wing Chun basics. This wasn't a sparring match. This wasn't something he could power through with speed or athleticism or star presence. Teaching is different. Teaching requires you to understand something so deeply that you can break it apart and hand the pieces to someone who's never held them before. It's the hardest thing in martial arts. Harder than fighting. Harder than performing. Because you can't fake it. The student's body either learns or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, the failure belongs to the teacher. Jackie nodded. He didn't argue. Didn't ask questions. Just said, "Tell me what to cover." Ip Chun pointed at the wooden dummy. Pak Sao. Tan Sao. Basic center line. Nothing else. 2 techniques. The most fundamental blocks in Wing Chun. The kind of thing a first-week student practices 100 times until the motion becomes automatic. Jackie knew them. He'd used versions of them in films for 30 years. But knowing how to perform a technique on camera and knowing how to teach it to a living person are 2 completely different things. And Jackie was about to find that out. The students arrived at 7. David led them in. They lined up the way they always did. When they saw Jackie standing at the front of the room instead of Ip Chun, nobody spoke. A few glanced at David. David gave nothing away. Jackie started the way he knew. The film way. He demonstrated Pak Sao with speed and flair. Snapped the block out. Let it pop. Added a follow-up strike to show application. It looked great. It would have looked great on any screen in the world. The students copied him. And it fell apart immediately. Their blocks were stiff. Overextended. They were mimicking the speed without the structure. 2 of them hyperextended their elbows trying to match his snap. One girl, couldn't have been older than 16, kept dropping her shoulder because she was focused on making the move look powerful instead of making it correct. Jackie stopped, looked at the line. Something wasn't working and he could see it but couldn't name it. Ip Chun sat on a folding chair in the corner. Watching. He said nothing. Jackie tried again. Slower this time. He broke the Pak Sao into 2 parts. Contact point and retraction. Showed each part separately. Better. But the students were still imitating his style instead of learning the mechanic. They looked like small versions of Jackie Chan instead of Wing Chun practitioners. That's when it hit him. He was teaching them to perform, not to understand. He was showing them what the technique looked like from the outside. But Wing Chun doesn't live on the outside. It lives in the structure, the bone alignment, the angle of the elbow relative to the center, the things you can't see in a mirror, the things you can only feel. Jackie stopped the class. He walked up to the girl who kept dropping her shoulder. He didn't demonstrate anything. Instead, he placed one hand on her elbow and the other on her wrist. Gently, he adjusted the angle, moved her forearm 2 inches to the right, lifted her elbow 1 inch. Then he pressed against her hand with his palm. "Push back," he said. She pushed. And for the first time, the structure held. Her whole body connected. Shoulder to elbow to wrist to palm. A straight line of force that didn't depend on muscle. She felt it. You could see it in her face. Something clicked. Jackie moved to the next student. Did the same thing. Hands on. No demonstration. Just correction. Feeling the structure through contact. The way Ip Man taught Ip Chun. The way Ip Chun taught David. The way Wing Chun has been passed from body to body for 300 years. Took 40 minutes. By the end, every student in that line could hold Pak Sao under pressure. Not beautifully, not fast, but correctly. The structure was there. The foundation was real. Jackie stepped back and looked at the line. 15 students. 15 correct structures. Built not by showing them what to copy, but by touching their arms and finding what was wrong and fixing it 1 joint at a time. He looked at Ip Chun. The old man was still sitting in the folding chair. His face hadn't changed much, but he did something Jackie had never seen him do. He nodded. Not a big nod. Not a bow. Just a small downward movement of the chin. The kind of gesture that means more from a man who gives nothing away than a standing ovation from a crowd of thousands. And in that moment, the title of this story delivered its promise. Because the shock wasn't a knockout, wasn't a secret technique, wasn't a betrayal or a hidden identity. The shock was this. The greatest martial arts movie star in history walked into that hall thinking mastery was about what you can do. And he walked out understanding that mastery is about what you can pass on. The real master is not the one who wins the fight. The real master is the one who builds the next generation of fighters. And on that morning, in a rented hall in Kowloon, Jackie Chan stopped being a performer and started becoming a teacher. Ip Chun stood up from his chair, walked over to Jackie, and said 5 words. "Now you are my student." Jackie didn't tell anyone what happened that morning. Not his team, not the press, not the producers waiting on his next project. He went home, sat in his apartment, and for the first time in years he didn't think about the next film. He thought about the girl whose shoulder kept dropping. He thought about the feeling of her elbow under his hand when the angle finally locked in. He thought about the moment her face changed when the structure connected. That feeling stayed with him, not like a memory, like a bruise, something he kept pressing on because it reminded him it was real. He went back to the hall 3 more times that week, each time at 6 in the morning, each time alone. Ip Chun didn't spar with him again. Didn't need to. That question had already been answered on the first day when Jackie ended up on the floor looking at the ceiling. What Ip Chun did instead was something harder and something more generous. He let Jackie watch him teach. Believe me, that doesn't sound like much. But if you've ever watched a true master teach, it's not the techniques. It's the decisions. Which student gets corrected first? Which mistake gets ignored because the student isn't ready to fix it yet? When to push? When to back off? When to say nothing and let the body figure it out on its own? Ip Chun made 50 decisions an hour that no one else in the room even noticed. Jackie noticed all of them. On the 3rd visit, Ip Chun asked Jackie to lead the class again. This time Jackie didn't perform anything. He walked the line, touched elbows, adjusted wrists, spoke quietly, 1 student at a time. No flash, no speed, just patience and contact. David stood at the back of the room and watched. When the session ended, he walked up to Jackie and said something that surprised everyone. "You're better than most instructors who've trained here for 5 years. Jackie shook his head. "I just did what Sifu does." David almost smiled. "That's what I mean. Now, here's what happened after. And this part matters because it tells you who Jackie Chan actually is underneath everything the cameras built around him. He went back to his production team and made changes. Not loud ones. Not the kind that end up in press releases. Quiet changes. He brought in real Wing Chun practitioners as consultants on his next film. Not for choreography, for accuracy. He insisted that every fight scene be built from real technique first and adapted for camera second instead of the other way around. The stunt team pushed back. They said audiences wouldn't know the difference. Jackie told them that wasn't the point. He also did something else. Something most people still don't know about. He funded the renovation of Ip Chun's training hall. New floors, proper ventilation, a sound system for the days when Ip Chun played traditional music during forms practice. Jackie paid for all of it. The only condition was that his name appear nowhere. No plaque, no sponsorship credit, nothing. If you walked into that hall after the renovation, you'd think the landlord had finally fixed the place up. That was the idea. Ip Chun accepted the money, which, if you understand the man, tells you everything. He had refused film deals worth 10 times that amount. He turned down endorsement offers every year. But he took Jackie's money, because it wasn't payment. It wasn't sponsorship. It was a student taking care of his teacher's house. That's a tradition older than Wing Chun itself. The 2 men stayed in contact for years. Not publicly. No joint interviews. No documentary. Just phone calls. Sometimes Jackie would send a video of a fight scene in progress and ask Ip Chun if the structure was correct. Sometimes Ip Chun would call and say nothing of importance. Just checking in. The way old friends do. The way a teacher does when he wants to know his student is still on the path. Ip Chun kept teaching until his body wouldn't let him stand for a full session anymore. Even then, he sat in the folding chair and corrected students with his voice. The hall stayed open. David eventually took over the daily classes. The wooden dummy in the corner got darker with every year. Smoother. More familiar. And Jackie Chan kept making movies. Kept doing stunts that made audiences hold their breath. But if you watch his later films closely, something is different. The fights are quieter. The movements are smaller. There's less spectacle and more precision. Less performance and more truth. You can see it in the way he holds his guard. The way his centerline stays controlled even in the middle of chaos. That's not choreography. That's Wing Chun. Real Wing Chun. The kind you can only learn from someone who learned it from someone who learned it from the source. Now think back to where this story started. A fist stopped an inch from a man's throat. Not because it missed, because it chose to. That moment makes sense now. Ip Chun could have made contact. Could have proven his power the way the world expects power to be proven. With impact. With damage. With a man on the ground. But he stopped. Because the point was never to hurt Jackie Chan. The point was to show him that real control, real mastery, is the ability to choose what you don't do. The fist that stops is stronger than the fist that lands. The teacher who builds is greater than the fighter who wins. That's the story. Two men in a bare room. One famous, one unknown. And by the end, the famous one was bowing, and the unknown one was still standing in the same place he'd always been. Unchanged, unmoved, teaching the next student who walked through the door. Some lessons don't come from training harder or fighting longer. Some lessons walk into a quiet hall at 6 in the morning and sit with you over a cup of cheap tea. And if you're paying attention, they change everything.